I wanted to speak into one thing that's been on my heart today, and that is the idea of generational dreaming. Generational dreaming is this idea that the generation that is here before, the first generation, the generations that are established in the world, you could call them the elder generations, are actually here to be penetrated by the emergent generations, to be changed by the consciousness that comes through with each generation that's born. And also, the generations that are emerging, the generations being born, are actually here to be grown and matured and changed by the elders. You could say that elders, or the ones that come before, the older generations, they hold almost they've soaked up the culture and the law and the stories, and they've worked out some ways of being here on earth. They have some real big medicine to pass on that grows a being, that changes a being, turns a being into a fully grown adult. And generations coming through, they are seeded with consciousness. They are seeded with a consciousness that's actually here to change the elders. It's a reciprocal relationship. The change is two-way. It's not just elders maturing young ones. It's actually young ones penetrating and growing elders, refining elders, bringing through the consciousness that they weren't able to touch. And you can think about it in some way like it is the standing on the shoulders metaphor. Each generation that comes through is here to stand on the shoulders of the generation that came before, here to see further than the generation that came before. I'm blessed with the opportunity to see further than those who came before me, because I get to stand on their work, and I get to stand on their shoulders, and all of their efforts and all their contributions, all the work they've done really supports me to see further. And then my children and the generations that come next will stand on my shoulders, and they'll see further than me. But this is something that's not really widely accepted in the Western world, at least right now. We don't do it very well right now. A lot of the time what happens is there's this power dynamic where the older you get, the more power you accumulate, and you put up your walls and your barriers, and you're not actually penetrated. You stop being penetrated by emergent consciousness. You stop being changed by that which comes through the evolutionary consciousness. And that part of that has been that it's also gone the other way, where those that are coming through have stopped listening to their elders. They've stopped listening to those that have journeyed far. They've stopped sitting with the wisdom of the world, those who've really journeyed in life. People have stopped listening to them because, this is metaphorical, so dance with me here, because the reciprocity isn't there at the moment. So the elders aren't listening to the emergent generation, and the emergent generation aren't listening to the elders. So we have this real disconnect in kind of functional consciousness evolution. So what happens is we're just, the elders stay in their little pods, and the emergent ones stay in their little pods. The emergent ones dream really revolutionary, beautiful things, but they don't really sustain because they're not grounded in maturity and depth. And the elders, they hold their maturity and their depth, but they put up their walls to the evolutionary emergent consciousness coming through that's asking them to change in ways that they can't comprehend and can't understand and can't be penetrated by. So this kind of older generation, younger generation dynamic is a really big thing, and it is a two-way evolutionary force. And because those two ways aren't happening, neither ways are happening right now. There is no exchange, barely. It's a trickle of exchange between the older ones and the younger ones. And in the places I've been, it's been places I've journeyed to. The elders have been really good at passing on or holding point for the established wisdom, but not very good at being penetrated by evolutionary consciousness that is seeded in each emergent generation. And I think that's because generational dreaming, that's what I call generational dreaming, hasn't been widely taught. It's not widely understood. We haven't thought about ourselves as collective beings enough, and really sat with this idea of ourselves as a collective organism enough to really see the two-way exchange that must happen for all to come into themselves and for all to be grown and evolved. So that's part of my prayer in all this, is that changes. And I've had some experiences just the last couple of days where lots of people, particularly some older people, have come in as really powerful forces and I'm trying to be supportive to my mission, but at the same time, really missing the mark, not being curious at all about what it is that I'm actually doing and the prayer that lives in it. And a lot of them have kind of like put onto me what I'm doing. They're kind of telling me, oh, this is what you're doing. And there's no questions being asked. There's no curiosity about, the real love and intention and like sacred calling that lives in this. They're kind of putting their sacred calling on top of it. And so I'm having this really direct experience right now of bringing through something that feels imperfectly revolutionary, beautifully emergent. It's both big and enormous and very little all at once, but at the same time being kind of having this projection of me onto me from like some of the elder beings, not all of them, don't get me wrong, but just some that don't really know me, who've kind of come in and wanted to really support this thing, and they're telling me what it is. And I really desire for their elders to come to me and be curious and go, what is it that you're doing? Like, tell me what you're doing. What is it that you've heard? What's the story you've heard? What's the thing that you know? What are you seeding here? And that's because that's not just them looking after me, that's them opening themselves. And I don't know about you, but I'm not really open or willing to be engaged with elders or anyone really in a two-way dynamic unless they're willing to be contacted, unless they're willing to be changed. Not just their wisdom and knowledge, being passed on to me, but a two-way exchange. I only consent to a generational dreaming. And you could say that this is a very old problem that humanity has had for a long time. You could think about it like, I could imagine once upon a time that the chiefs and the elders had this problem. The chiefs wanting to change the structure or bringing through things that are like divinely inspired, and the elders being like, that's not how we do things around here. Or the elders trying to like lead the emergent wise ones or the emergent leaders within the tribes, trying to lead them in a direction that was actually truly sustaining. And those coming through into leadership and coming through into their fully grown adulthood, not being willing to listen to the elders because the elders aren't embodying what they need to truly listen to them. The elders aren't doing what those coming through need to really give honor and respect to what they have to say. So I suppose I'm not really here with any answers other than generational dreaming is important, and it has to be reciprocal. It has to be two-way. There is no flourishing. There is no sustainability. There is no world that grows into the form of sustained, mature, getting better over time, magic, love, whatever the words are. Playing poetically here. There is none of that unless it's two-way. Unless the elders are contacted by those coming through, and unless those coming through are contacted by the elders. And that's part of our challenge right now. Can the beings that have been around for a long time be changed by emergent consciousness? And can emergent consciousness be matured and grown and really honor what has come before? And I'm having a visceral experience in my world of that very thing right now. That very tension point is here with some of the power beings, some of the forces of leadership and, sacred leadership here in the UK really kind of appearing, and we're having our own little kind of invisible sacred exchange, is one way to say it, our own little energetic wrestle as we feel our way, we rub up against each other and kind of feel our way through the dynamic. And we haven't done it well, so there isn't really a modern day precedent, but it is here, and it is part of this moment for me. And my prayer is for generational dreaming, and any elder out there who has journeyed deeply and wants to meet me with curiosity, I will meet you with curiosity. And any elder that is here to be changed and contacted by what I'm bringing through, I will sit with you and I will be changed and contacted by what you've learned and what you hold. But we have to get there first. And that takes quite a lot of what isn't much in the world right now. 2 days out. 2 days. You know what? It's less than 2 days. It's actually 28 hours. It's 28 hours until I take the first step. I'm going to get some sleep. I love you.